well say, Goblins, be gone!
Be gone! You are exercised from this platform. There you are!
Where?
It
I don't
works!
see me! Where's me?
The invisible man.
Oh, that's Bill Maher, not me.
We don't care about him. We only care about you. You are the Goblin Master.
Okay, if you
Look,
say
you're even
so.
out of focus. Look at this.
I'm in focus?
No, you're out of focus. The goblins aren't. They will
That's
be hurt.
because I'm adjusting my chair. I'm old
okay.
and everything is uncomfortable in this world.
I relate to that as well.
I'm Allen fucking Greenfield.
Fantastic. How are you this evening?
I'm doing just fine. I'm giving all the right signs and grips and bullshit stuff. Okay? So am I admitted to the temple?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're automatically.
You are a high priest of the cult of the Holy Donut.
Yes.
There's no more Dunkin' Donuts. It's just Dunkin'.
Right. It's
really?
just Dunkin' now. That's what we got in the Northeast up here is Dunkin' everywhere.
That's what they sang on the way to the camp. Skigga Dunkin' is fry, which is, I wish I had something to eat like a donut or anything. Maybe some air to breathe, you know. Oh, I shouldn't do that this particular weekend. This is Holocaust Memorial Weekend. So let me just say, for your listeners or viewers, there was a Holocaust. And we're getting back at you now.
And if you're a Nazi, Odin thinks you're a douchebag.
Okay. Well, I think all Nazis are douchebags, but...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I favor beheading them slowly with a dull katana.
Yeah, it's pretty crucial that you punch a Nazi on sight.
At the very least.
Actually, one time I was, back in my activist days, I was invited to participate in a demonstration against the KKK, which still has a small following around here. Maybe getting larger, who knows? And I said, I don't go to Klan things without being armed. And they said, well, you can't carry any weapons. I said, well, no deal. So I didn't, it's almost the only one I ever missed. Those are Shriner hats.
Sort of. SJ,
well, hers is actually a Shriner hat.
It is.
I recognize it because I know the signs and the grips and the...
It is from my favorite brick building in Portland, Oregon. It was made in there.
Is it? Did it used to be a shrine?
No, but the building, it's called the Decum Building, and it was, of course, built by Masons, and there are greened men in the sandstone on every side of the building.
What can that mean? It must have an esoteric meaning available only to high initiates. Well, I'm a high initiate. Can I get another shot now?
Yeah, you can be as high as you like. We're in a legal state. We don't care.
Well, we don't
want hard drugs though. We want you to be around.
Speaking of ghettos, I'm in Atlanta. So,
okay. Oh, okay. Hot Atlanta.
Am I supposed to sing now? I love a parade. I love a parade. I love a parade. I love a parade. That's all I know.
Oh, okay. That's half of my goal. I have a secret goal for this evening, and when it's like a bonus goal, and when you achieve it, I'll let you know. That's half credit.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
I think you'll get there.
Yeah,
I believe in you.
Something about that Terry person. I won't
no.
It anymore.
Well, I mean,
I'm so fucking sick of fucking Terry. If he's still out there, give me my books back, you fucker. You've caused me more trouble than... What? Never heard of him.
Terry Wrist did it? He took your books?
Well, I loaned him my amazing stories from the 1940s with the shaver material. And then I had to go do something for the OTO. And when I got back to Atlanta, he was gone. Never saw him again.
Yeah.
Or my
fucker.
books. So
You hear
people
that,
ask-
Terry Wrist? You're on notice.
now you're going to hear from like 17 people claiming to be Terry Rich.
Wonderful.
2 of them are, maybe 3, but you'll never know until
Yeah.
they show up at your door.
Well, if you're claiming to be Terry Rest, leave a comment in the
No,
below.
I'm
Smash
not.
that like and subscribe button.
Yes,
No.
Terry Wrist, you're allowed to like and subscribe this video.
Terry, if you're out there, before you die, say you're not me, okay? You old bastard.
Do it
War
do
criminal.
solid.
War criminal, Vietnam. Peace now,
Oh,
man.
I didn't know we were going for war tonight. I'm into this.
Oh, war. Okay. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. Unprompted people.
Y'all.
What are these people doing here? Why are they watching me?
I can't
Oh.
help you with that one.
Okay. When I was doing OTO initiations, it calls for a whatever they call that veteran headpiece. But I had my then wife, number 3, I think, make me one of those, but in black. And that's what I wore during the initiation. So the good news for all you people that took initiation from me, they weren't Orthodox, so you're free to go. And go now.
Perfect.
Sue them, don't sue me. Is that Bugs Bunny?
It is. Yep.
Okay, just being sure.
Correct.
But it might have been your personal puka, like Harvey, Okay, so are we going to actually do anything here, or are we going to?
Yes, we're going to talk about your book. I got so excited
Which
when you
book?
brought it up. The Black Lodge book.
Oh, that book. Okay.
The latest. Yeah. I will admit I had to have. Okay, I absolutely devoured the content on the Twin Peaks chapter. Really helped me connect it because I'm such a freak over that show. Before that, I was just kind of like, okay, it's a force that you can, enter, and it reflects back who you are. And it was kind of vague, but that particular chapter, and of course, AP's giant brain, which I'm like, I really want to understand what I'm reading. Help me out here. And I think that was my favorite part of the book, was probably the Twin Peaks chapter, how you use that as a reflection to try to conceptualize or explain a concept that is kind of undefinable.
I keep trying to get my publisher, who wrote that chapter, to send a copy to David Lynch, because his background and most of his films reflect a level of initiated knowledge. And of course, Twin Peaks is fiction, but it's fiction that correlates very closely with the idea of a Black Lodge, and what I'm trying to discourage people from using White Lodge, because that sounds like the Klan again.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say the secret chiefs of the Third Order. That's my preference. Not that the Black Lodge has a brass plate on their door saying Black Lodge.
Enter here.
And I don't think the secret chiefs have a secret chiefs or the Great White Brotherhood or any of that.
It wouldn't be a secret if they did that.
Well, you're right. But I don't think, that they really have it's like La Cosa Nostra. It's a way of referring to our group of people, beings, whatever, as opposed to the actual name of it. I don't think anybody, went to the meeting of the mob and did a brand everyone here is a member of the Cosa Nostra, yes? Not me, I'm a member of B'nai B'rith. Take the Jew out of here, smart ass bastard. Okay. Leave that in. I like it.
Perfect.
This is the book that caused the most suffering since
Ooh.
Secret Cipher of the Ufonauts, which,
Really?
yeah, that was my first break as an author. Until then, I was a writer in all these little publications ground out on mimeographs and even spirit duplicators, so that your fingers were purple. And Ron Bonds, to whom this book is dedicated, first he turned down a book that I did. He wasn't the first, nor the last. And then he said, but you know, the section of your book about cipher and UFOs, I'm paraphrasing here, this is a long time ago. If you flesh that out into a book, I would publish it. So I did, and he did. And then he died under very mysterious circumstances. And the press that he had founded, and which was a haven for people with weird ideas, it was the home of high strangeness. It died with him, and several of his authors also died under mysterious circumstances. So when I got around to this particular book, which had originally been conceptualized as the third volume of the Secret Cipher trilogy, third and final, I was worried, and I talked to Olaf, the big kahuna at our publishing situation, and said, look, I want to dedicate this to the memory of Ron Bonds, but I want to tell you, you know, I am not a Teflon man. The amount of trouble that I've had saying any of these things has been, in the relative order of things, not bad. But if they come down on anybody, chances are it'll be you. And so let me teach you a few things that, I mean, I didn't have to teach him everything because he's got his own survival skills of a more exoteric type. But I don't think he took it particularly seriously, and he has had a host of really, really difficult, challenging things going on with him, almost from the day we started work on the book. It took over a year to create it, and it's ongoing. He's still having a lot of problems. So, I mean, from where I sit, you know, if it causes that much attention from the Black Lodge, for lack of a better term, we must be on to something.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking with that. Yeah.
Of course, if doing a fictional version, which has been done a number of times, I mean, Aleister Crowley wrote Moonchild, or the Butterfly Net, as it was known at one point.
I love that chapter too, by the way. That was my second favorite.
Well, I guess that was published in the early 1920s, if I remember right. And he lived another 20 some odd years after that. So he didn't. The only disasters that befell Aleister Crowley were things that Aleister Crowley did to himself.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have that. It is true that he died more or less penniless and friendless. But
And addicted too, right?
well, yes. I mean, there are extenuating circumstances there, but yeah, he was addicted to heroin, which was being prescribed for him at one point for his asthma, which
Oh my goodness.
probably works. You still wheeze, but you don't
You don't
care
give
anymore.
a shit about anything if you're on heroin. Like, come off.
But he experimented with every drug that was available in those days, and there are even rituals that are too secret for me to reveal, unless you pay me, that require you to use certain illicit substances that have a very Victorian flavor, you know, like laudanum
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm fresh out.
Well, I could loan you, but never mind. It's not important right now. But so it's been a very costly process to get this book out. But we did manage to do some things that I thought were very important. Of course, the Twin Peaks thing and some of the stuff towards the back of the book may be pretty obscure, but it really is a deep dive into evil.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on
And
that all day.
in the middle, there's a lot of stuff that I found out over the years working in middle ufology, which is not contactees and not nuts and bolts people, because they're both clinically insane. In the middle were Ray Barker and Jim Moseley and Rick Hilberg and me and Gene Steinberg and a cast of dozens. Ufology was a lot smaller in those days. But we looked at these things with a critical eye, but not with a jaded critical eye like the nuts and bolts people do. You know, flying saucer could be seen in the sky, but if it landed and something came out of it, that couldn't happen somehow or other. I don't know either. The logic escapes me. If it's 100 feet up, comes down, it's descended 100 feet, right? It's just the math, you know. So
Right.
why can't it do that? Because they were worried about respectability. And also, a lot of those people were come from an engineering or military background. Also, I think what for a while was the largest UFO organization, NICAP, then known as the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, 1536 Connecticut Avenue, Washington, 6 D.C. They threw me out of their office once. There's a picture somewhere that shows Rick Hilberg, Gene Steinberg, me, and one of Gene's friends from the Peace Movement in New York, standing in front of 1536 right after we had departed from their third floor office, courtesy of the late and unlimited Richard Hall, then their office manager, not knowing that the day before we had met with Major Donald E. Kehoe, retired. As I called him Major Donald E. retired, since he had been retired for 40 years at that point. But anyway, he was very nice to us. Dick Hall was a dick. He was definitely a dick. He didn't like me, and I didn't like him.
Well, there you go.
A mutual dislike society. So my prejudice is sort of anti-NICAP, but there are suspicious things. It was founded, I think, in 1956, if I recall correctly, by I don't even remember his name because he was only there for a short time. And he was a civilian with no particular background in either military or intelligence. And he was replaced by Kehoe, who was an Annapolis graduate, and the board of directors from that point on was basically his classmates from Annapolis. The head of the board of directors of NICAP, almost from the beginning, was Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter, who, out of the OSS, was the first head of the CIA.
Yep.
And this was, of course, after the 1953 CIA panel that you have to get into 50s things and Red Scare stuff, but they thought that private UFO organizations could be used by the Communist Party USA to cause fake flaps so that Russian bombers, FICBNs back then, could sneak in and blow up Washington and New York and most of Delaware. So after that, it seems like the few private UFO organizations that existed at the time got the bejesus scared out of them and had their come to Jesus moment, went out of business. And then NICAP was formed, and a lot of people joined it because it was somehow or other well funded.
Mysteriously enough.
Mysteriously enough. But it had this, what amounted to a doctrine, which was we're investigating the lights in the sky, but we dismiss the Shaver mystery, the contactees, the landing cases, and that turned out to be their doom, really, because as the landing cases got better, they lost their relevance to another nuts and bolts group, which I don't think is, I mean, it has a lot of ex-NASA type people, but it was then the Midwest UFO Network, now known as the
Fun.
Yeah. And MUFON over the years has mellowed. I used to go to their conventions and they take me out back and work me over. That was okay, it felt interesting, but it's almost literally true. I mean, first time I went, cut my hair, wore a suit, a white suit, and played it very straight. Interviewed Stan Friedman, who just said what he always had to say. And I think I still have that recorded, actually. I mean, I'm sure I recorded it on reel-to-reel or cassette, but long ago I transferred that stuff to a digital format, so that when the sun, EMFs or whatever, wipes out all this material, I'll be sure to be part of the wipeout. Wipeout. So anyway, MUFON, the next convention, I went as myself. And Walt Andrus, who was then the head of MUFON, said, "What happened to you, Alan? You looked so debonair last year." I said, "Well, this is the real me, Walt, old buddy, old pal." But they're very straight edge, so they don't have to be funded by the government. And they still are, but somewhere along the line, the pressure of the weight of evidence, I guess you could say, has allowed people more, in the days of NICAP, would have been considered fringe, like me, or like Gene Steinberg, or John Keel, or even Jacques Vallée. They have let people in. I knew the weather had changed there when they made Jim Mosley, he had retired to Key West. We were neighbors for a while, actually. They made him their state chairman of MUFON. I thought, I had best revise and take a second look. But they're still the nuts and bolts group. It's just that Rick Hilberg is their historian for Ohio, I guess because they've broadened out, but the core is still engineering types that desperately want UFOs to be a unique phenomena instead of what I think they are, and I think what you think they are, which is one manifestation of high weirdness, of which there are many, and they kind of morph one into another because they are something quite distinct from rocket ships and the usual science fiction stuff. They're not Arthur Clarke, they're Philip K. Dick. And
I agree. I think we
you know
both
your
agree.
science, yeah, it's a different story. And for years, I told that story, decades, I told that story to mostly people who were unsympathetic. But now I'd say, while it's still a minority opinion, because so much of TV, and for that matter, the Twitter or the X
It's Twitter forever for me. Sorry.
It's just Twitter.
disclosure group. X, formerly Twitter, as it's going to be on Elon's tombstone. X, formerly Twitter. X, formerly Elon, now decomposing.
Well, what do you think of that? And nowadays, where you have people in the disclosure movement talking about non-human intelligence, and they seem to be like trying to ascribe a more metaphysical quality to it. It just seems like this ham-fisted interpretation of ideas that you've talked about over the years, that John Keel talked about, but they're not kind of giving due deference to what came before, as is typically the case in the disclosure movement.
Well, then they're no longer the disclosure movement if they all get around to that, because ultimately, or penultimately, I guess you would say, the disclosure movement has an underlying concept that the government, specifically the United States government, agency unspecified, knows the real truth about the flying saucers. In fact, they've got alien corpses and maybe a few living aliens in a zoo somewhere buried under Area 50, you know, whatever their particular thing is. But it boils down to, if they think, as I do, that the phenomena is malleable and that there is ultimately no difference between Bigfoot, Nessie, and a flying saucer and the little green men or the little blue men or the little purple men or whatever, then if they don't know beyond looking for that, which I don't think is what they are looking for, by the way, even what little investigation is done, they don't know shit. The government can't disclose because thee and me probably know far more about what these things, to the extent that we can know what these things are, than any agency of the United States or any other government knows. What they're interested in, I think, is the possibility, and they say this, but it just sort of skates by the disclosure people because they're looking for pickled aliens. And if I'm correct, there by definition can't be any pickled aliens, because in the sense that they mean, there aren't any aliens. They are otherness. They're like pickled ghosts. I mean, that's an oxymoron, right? Pickled ghosts. Well, pickled aliens are sort of the same thing. It's really the notion that this is a physical phenomenon or becomes physical or whatever. And I'm quite sure that that isn't the case. Anyway, when I started out, it was just a few voices crying in the wilderness. Repent, repent, ye ufologists, or burn in hell. And but now it's a sizable minority who say it looks like if you just look for the nuts and bolts flying saucers that are just somebody else's equivalent of our Mars probes or whatever, or lunar ships or whatever, that is still a majority pushed by television on the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, Discovery Plus, Discovery Plus Plus Plus, or like C Plus Plus.
Well, this is where I find myself coming to conclusions that I find backed up in your work a lot of the time, where I tend to think of the UFO mystery as being sort of like the occult mystery schools. And if you have a knowledge dropped on you, like, okay, they can be physical, but they're not always physical, and you're not of a sufficient level of understanding of esoteric terms for things. I mean, you currently have conservative politicians that are involved in these briefings that are talking about angels and demons now, oversimplifying the thing. and turning it into a religious thing that falls neatly into a basket that they understand. But if you have a background in esotericism like you do, and you kind of see there's more threads to pull on than that, right? It's more complicated than that.
Sure. I mean, in esoteric stuff, you have invocation and evocation, both of which involve materializing something that ordinarily would not be material. It would be from, the terminology is a bit scathed, but the astral realm or some. I think the underlying point is reality as we understand it is very malleable. Magicians, good ones, use that reality to bend our consensus reality. Among the things that you can bend is the notion that angels, demons, whatever, are materializable. And that is rarely understood, except, as you're pointing out, there's this desperate attempt by some people to transfer the notion of aliens from another planet to angels and demons. But in fact, I think prior to modern times, in other words, prior to the Enlightenment of the late 18th century, the same phenomena that would be recorded as cryptids and Bigfoot and flying saucers were reported as angels and
Angel visitations. Yep.
the
St.
chariot
Therese.
of the
Mhm.
Lord, and
Yeah.
And doing
Or
conjuration was not
yeah.
very different from the Kabbalism, which is based largely on the first chapter of the book of Ezekiel. So that goes back. Well, it's probably one of the most datable portions of the Hebrew scriptures, but it probably goes back 2,500 years to the early days of the Babylonian exile. So that's where it was written. So people have tried to say, oh, it was a spaceship. Well, it was a spaceship. It was a visitation from God. It was a visitation from an angel of God, blah, blah, blah. It was the goddess embodied. All of those things can be both true and untrue. And I think that's the part that people have a lot of trouble grasping. Because once you say that reality shifts, and what you think is reality is not necessarily a complete picture, then the floor vanishes under you and you get devoured by the Lord of the Abyss.
Yeah.
That's what they think. Actually, I think that opens up a perspective that coincides with the cutting edge of quantum physics and quantum biology now.
Reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you. Why did the chicken cross the abyss?
Okay, I'll bite.
I actually don't know. I was hoping you'd have a stab at the answer to it. I haven't come up with a punchline to it yet.
It doesn't matter because he got run down in the middle of the road.
There you go.
There is no chicken.
There is no
chicken
road.
is only a reflection in your mind.
Yeah.
There are only feathers, no chicken.
When we're talking about the malleability of reality, I think this is one of the questions we definitely wanted to get to with you. Is a great example of that to me is synchronicity, and because the way I think of synchronicity happening is sometimes it almost seems like the universe has to retroactively reconfigure itself to allow for something to happen in the timeline that it happens in order for that synchronicity to occur, right? So
Sure.
and that's something I've heard from you plenty of times, is follow the synchronicities. But also there is a danger of kind of driving yourself crazy with that if you're if you're
Well, I
not.
wouldn't say that to someone who wasn't also level-headed. I
Right.
always say, and it's only slightly metaphorical, that back in the days when I had individual students, which I don't do now, not for any particular reason, it's just different phase of my life. I put it all in books and on podcasts and radio and TV. I'm a star. I'm a star. All the
We're all a
world
star.
hates a star. Every man and every woman is a star. There's that little part that Crowley tried to add in. But men are better stars than women. Yeah, no. I made that up.
Also,
Ishtar would like a word.
yeah. It's also my favorite line in the Family Stone song. Everybody is a star. I
To
can
love
feel
me
it
is
on
better
me.
than all things. If under the night stars in the desert, now presently, I'm 162 years old. I think that's right. Is that right?
Is that that must be dog ears.
No. It's years, 365 round the sun, twirling around 24 hours. And what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So when I had students, I would say something along the lines of, if you get deeply involved in magical work, you must take at least 3 hours a week to watch the Cartoon Channel or equivalent on TV and laugh your fucking ass off.
Perfect.
Can I say fucking ass?
You could say whatever the fuck you want on this show.
Okay, well,
You're Alan
laugh.
fucking Greenfield. You can say whatever you want.
There is nothing whatever. Yeah, well, no asterisks though. Alan effing Greenfield. I'm not an effing. I'm a fucking asshole. But that's not important right now. What's really important is if you don't maintain your sense of humor, you will go down one of the perils of the path, one of the deep dives into madness. And I have seen that enough times. That may be sort of a reason why I don't take on students anymore, because if they go wrong, they go real wrong. So what I do is if somebody, teach me, Alan, I say, well, I can empower you. That takes about 10 minutes, cost you nothing. But then it's up to you to take that empowerment and use it. But be sure to watch those cartoons. Or I say something equivalent to that. The synchronicities will drive you absolutely crazy, especially if you're looking for them, they don't happen. If you're not looking for them, they will happen in abundance. And I think that they have something to do with the fundamental nature of reality. That is, just as you have the synchronous effects like the Fibonacci sequence of numbers, or it's sort of like chaos theory, not chaos magic, but chaos theory about why do galaxies tend to look like pinwheels, or why do pinwheels tend to look like galaxies?
Magic ratio, all of that.
Yeah. You may be, and probably are, in my opinion, looking at something underlying the nature of reality. And the further one pursues that, the closer to some sort of a semblance of self-disclosure one gets. So, and you can read that either way, self-disclosure, disclosure of self, whichever. There's ultimately no difference.
Yeah.
So it sort of has flavors of Jung, where he was like, his basic theories being it was subconscious, or you're tapping into the collective unconscious. I always thought that it felt more personal and pointed than just a collective. Like, one of my particular things that probably everybody knows is bricks. Like, if I see a random brick on the ground, like I'm stopping, full stop, and looking around and paying attention because some shit's about to go down. There's just been dozens of times where I'm just literally nowhere near, you know, a brick should be. And then there's, you know what I mean? And so it's like that message would only be for some brick obsessed weirdo like me, or somebody that knows me. And so like, hey, like he sees bricks sometimes and it's like, oh, look, I found a brick today. Ha ha. You know, I've been thinking about you. The brick already exists. It's out there, but it needs the right receiver to encounter it, to make the connection, to continue that co-creation that we're all kind of living here, I think.
Well, the most common one, and it relates somewhat to Hellier because of it sort of fell in there, are balloons. Once somebody sees the role that balloons played in the previous seasons of Hellier, they start seeing these balloons in really odd places. Always the Mylar helium balloons, and usually partly deflated. And, you know, if you see that in the middle of the Sahara and a happy birthday balloon comes down, it probably is not your typical kid that lets go of their balloon. It's a little more complicated than that. And I hear from people all the time who say, oh yeah, I watched Hellier and then I saw a balloon, and then the next day I saw a balloon, and then the day after that I was looking for a balloon and didn't see it. I'm paraphrasing. That's a typical pattern. So bricks for some, balloons for others. So I just say, follow the synchronicities. They're going to be different for different people. I have a brick that I took from under the steel pier, which may not be there anymore, in Atlantic City, because I have a fondness for that particular pier, which I had never been to in its heyday, because my parents, who did a lot of travel before I was born, apparently. I mean, social travel. It's a lot of business travel afterwards. That was one of their favorite places. So I said, I gotta have a souvenir of this. And my friend said, so what are you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna go down under the pier, and this is a very, very old pier, so there will probably be some loose bricks, and I'm gonna take one home. Why not? I had taken a little piece of one of the Mayan pyramids. I won't specify which one because that's probably not, you know, particularly. And then I found an altar out in the middle of the jungle on the island of Morea, then French Polynesia, and I took a stone from that. And I eventually gave it to one of my best students to make a wand. You know, two different altars in different parts of the world, and totally different parts of the world. One from the northern hemisphere and one from the southern hemisphere. And she no doubt created kangaroos or whatever. I don't follow up on these things. I just pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, you already told us that this was one of the hardest books. This isn't not specific about it, though. I was going to ask you, what is your favorite's not the right word. What is the book or the offering that you have given us all that you are the most proud of that you've published or released?
That's a tough one. I've never been asked that before. First, and you heard it first on the Holy Donut.
Holy Donut Revival Hour.
Amen, brother. Hallelujah. Pass the cheese. Cheese on the Danish that I got from Duncan, formerly known as X. Oh, I'm mixing
Oh, again.
X donuts.
So I guess that the history book I did a while back, which was not a big seller, but which I'm proud of, History of Modern Magic, 1700 to 2000. That is a collection strung together of essays that I did over a very long period of time, maybe 20 years, maybe even longer, that I segued from one to the other, that traces the untraceable, because most magical societies are secretive.
Right.
And what I hit upon and still use is you will never find out all of the internal things about something unless you join it. Maybe not even then. In fact, probably not even then. But what you can trace is you can sift out what is the authentic magical tradition and what is, the mail order or on a more sinister level, the following Bowen to the Hale-Bopp comment and beyond and beyond.
That is not this kind of cult, okay?
I did buy a donut this week from a man that looked like Marshall Applewhite. It was really
He's back.
upsetting.
Did you ask him if any of the others have come back?
No, I just wanted to get out of there quickly.
Okay.
Okay. Would you rather accept a donut that you had to eat from Marshall Applewhite or from L. Ron Hubbard?
That is not a choice. That's
You just take the poison now and just
no, I walk away and take my business elsewhere.
Okay. That's fair enough.